Well, hey everybody, welcome to Sunday. Glad you're here. I bailed out last week. We were in California the previous week, and we're at the auto show, thousands of people there, and I got a cold, and I was feeling under the weather, just had no energy, stuffy nose, all that. But anyway, I'm on the mend now, so that means we're back, and we have some stuff coming up this week that I think you're going to be interested in. We are starting to put together all of our top 5 videos. So top 5 compact cars. Top 5, I should say, compact SUVs we've already done. But we've decided to do a top 5 compact SUVs that are gasoline models only. Some people said, it's great that you scored vehicles so highly because they're available as a hybrid or a plug-in, but I'm not interested in that, so we've come up with that. That's coming out on Tuesday. Top 5 compact SUVs, gas only. The following day is the top 5 subcompact crossover vehicles. These are the vehicles like the Toyota Corolla Cross, the Honda HR-V, the Hyundai Kona, that sort of thing. So our top 5 is coming out on Wednesday. And then on Saturday, we're going to be putting out another CR-V video. It's not the hybrid. We got an opportunity to get the top trim, so we decided to get it back just for fun to see what that one's like. And this week, it's nice that we don't have to travel. The Canadian launch of the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, the plug-in, is right here in Vancouver. So we just get up in the morning and we head down to the hotel, meet everybody else there, and we head out on the drive program. That's going to be this week. So I think it's a week on Monday, a week tomorrow is when the embargo lifts on that, and we'll put all our driving impressions of the PHEV from Mitsubishi out next week. Couple of things, canadadrives.ca if you're looking for a used vehicle. You shop online, you search online, you get qualified online, you pay online, and then they deliver it to you often the next day in a covered truck. And then carcostcanada.com if you're looking for information on a new vehicle. Type in the promo code MOTORMOUTH and become an expert member. Say you're searching, we'll pick a CR-V again. Say you're searching for a CR-V LX, is it an LX? LE? LX, I think. You would get all the information. You'd find out exactly what the dealer paid for the car. So that's important information. Okay, that's what's going on. Now we get into the pictures. We have a few pictures that came in. This is from over 2 weeks, so here we go. Not that many, 1 or 2 here. The first one, this is Nick. He said he ordered his Telluride 8 months ago from Nanaimo Kia and finally got it this week. It's the new X Pro with the terracotta interior, and we just had the Telluride a couple of weeks ago. Excellent choice. It would be my choice in the 3-row SUV space. This next one is from John. That's his 2018 Honda Civic Coupe with the 6-speed manual. Only 29,000 kilometers on it. Looks like he's got tire dressing on the wheels there, which is why they're white. So that's a nice car, great car, and no longer available, the Coupe. This next one comes to us from My T-Bird, who is in Hawaii, and he sent me a picture of, so the email said blonde. It's like from Hawaii, but it's a bikini blonde is a beer. So there you go, and he's on Hawaiian time, so good for you. This next one is from Scott, who sends in pictures of his Mustang, but usually it's the black one, but he went to the Charlotte Auto Show, took his wife, and she said she actually had a good time. And there's the new Mustang. And we have one more here, and this is a great combination. This is Josh from Des Moines, Iowa. He attached a photo of his 2021 RAV4 Prime XSE. So that's very rare. That's the plug-in RAV4, which is really, really hard to get. On top of that, he's got the 2008 Mazda Miata or MX-5 with the retractable hardtop. That generation of MX-5 is my favorite. I just think that is a better looking car than the new one. They went to all the angular kind of look on the latest MX-5 or the Miata, but I think that one is just perfect. I love the color, I love the interior. That's a nice garage. You've got the logical one, that's the RAV4 Prime, and then you've got the passionate one, and that's the MX-5. Sorry, did I say it wrong? The logical one is the RAV4 Prime, and the passionate one is the MX-5. Did I get that wrong? Anyway. All right, let's see what's going on here. So thank you to everybody that's loading on here. Ryan Clark sent a sticker. Thank you very much. You can see that in the comments there. And we have also our first super chat. So if you want to get a super chat, it's just a way to highlight a question for me, and then that way I will answer it because it shows up on my screen as a different color. Bonsoir, news on the Corolla Cross Hybrid arrival. Well, Jean, I just spoke to the gang at Toyota when we were at the LA Auto Show. There's Andrea at the LA Auto Show booth standing in front of the new Prius. And we asked the Canadian PR team and said, what's happening with all the new launches? Are they just going to put cars in what we call the press fleet, the cars for us to drive here locally, or are they going to have an event? So the update I got on Toyota was the Highlander with the new turbo 4-cylinder engine is just going to arrive in the press fleet. They're not doing a special program for that. The Corolla Cross Hybrid, they will be doing a special program for that. And we are going to drive the Prius very soon. So we can't wait to get our hands on that. So the Prius is very impressive. The people that watched the video, the short video we did, and commented on it, overwhelmingly blown away by the design and the looks. And if you watch this live show regularly, you probably know that Andrea and I went to the head office of Toyota in the United States in Plano, Texas. And that was in the beginning of June. They took us into a private room, an enclosed room, and they showed us two cars. I'm going to tell you what they are now because I can. They took us into a private room. We had to take our phones, and they put them in special envelopes, and they kept them outside of the room, so there was no way anybody could get a picture. And they had cloths over the two cars. The first vehicle they pulled the silk off of was the Prius, and I was like, wow, that is impressive. So we saw it back in June, and we were sworn to secrecy. We couldn't even say that we saw anything. So that was one car, and the other one was the Toyota Crown. They've both since been released. The Crown is not available yet to drive here in Vancouver, but we're going to get our hands on it soon. But the Prius, we will be driving that soon. All right. Let's see what else is going on here. So once again, if you just have to get a question answered, Super Chat's the way to go. All right, let's jump into the questions. First again this week, Sanjeev. Hey, Zach, when are you driving the Ford F-150 Lightning? Apparently it's on its way. The Cadillac CT5 Blackwing, not going to be having our hands on that anytime soon. The Grand Cherokee Trailhawk 4xE, not sure on that. And the Sonata N-Line, not sure on that one. So we're kind of striking out on those ones. The only one I know is coming is the Lightning. Hey, Zach, is there a safety feature in non-luxury brands that allows driver to see approaching cars in hidden intersections or in the dark? This is a good question. So, yes, you do have this available in some high-end cars. The field of view of their sort of sonar, radar, and camera systems is wider. So if a car's coming across traffic, it will alert you and jam on the brakes as well. The only one I can think of that has something similar to that is on Subaru. We were just on the Outback launch in Ontario. It's only available on the top trim, but that is a wider angle single or a mono lens camera. So Subaru has what's called eyesight. Just behind the rear view mirror, there's two cameras. It's called a stereo camera, left and right. And the field of view on that, I believe, is around 60 degrees. So those two cameras work together. That's your typical forward collision warning, lane keep assist. It does all that. Excuse me. Just below that, but only on the top trim, is another single camera, but it has a wider field of view. I believe it's, trying to remember, I think one was 60, one was 80 or 90. It's a wider field of view. So that's there to capture more of the oncoming traffic from the side. And it would possibly be able to detect things at night. I guess especially if you had lights on a car, it would detect that. But not sure about a bicycle or anything. But yeah, that's the one brand I can think of that has something similar to that. And is the case with all these things. Excuse me. As soon as it comes in on sort of the high-end trims, eventually it will trickle down to the other brands. Hi, Zach. What's the interior space of the 2023 Prius? Is material quality overall better than the current generation? We have to tell you the truth. Like when you go to an auto show like this, the LA Auto Show, there were thousands of people, and there's a big lineup of people like us who want to do their what we call stand-ups with the car and all that kind of stuff. So we didn't get a lot of time with the car. Having seen it in Texas, looking through the window, I was impressed with the dash layout. But you know that Toyota's not going to be making any massive leaps when it comes to the interiors. They sort of steady as she goes. The one thing I did notice is the orientation of the screen is horizontal and not vertical with the bigger screen. So just hang tight. It won't be long now until we get a chance to get our hands on it and drive it. Just a few weeks away. There's my T-Bird. Aloha from Waikiki. Hopefully you're enjoying your vacation. Where did we always go in Waikiki with the kids? We went to P.F. Chang's. That's where we always went. Hey, Zach, do you think the next gen Durango will be the inline six Hurricane Turbo or hybrid? Will there be a next gen Durango? Apparently the Type R will be 80,000 plus with markup. That is insane. To be honest with you, I don't know much on either of them. Listen, whatever speculation there is around Durango, I really don't know. I'm not that drilled into it. I'm a big fan of the current Durango. It's running on an older platform, but one of the great things is it is probably, if you're looking for a 3-row SUV that has good handling, the Durango is the one you want. Also, the best towing capacity of all of the 3-row SUVs. If you get it with the think about that, a 3-row SUV, mid-size SUV with an available V8 engine, they're really the only ones that offer that. So it's kind of a unique product. I don't know what's happening with Durango off the top of my head. I could dig into it. Do you think Honda are pricing themselves out with their huge recent increases? Thanks and keep up the good work. Yeah, I don't understand this. If you're in the United States, there is a Honda premium. You pay more than a lot of the competition to get a Honda. Honda obviously believes their name has the purchasing power, or not the purchasing power, can demand a certain price, and also has the cachet that people are willing to pay more to buy a Honda. Okay, yeah, that's possible. But here in Canada, the price differential, you don't just pay a Honda premium, you're paying a massive amount more than its direct competitors. I don't understand what their philosophy is. Sure, we're living through inflationary times. Sure, car prices are high, but we're starting to see now inventories are starting to build up. Used car prices are starting to fall off. The economy is starting to move into a different phase. Interest rates are very high. So, interest rates for many vehicles are now around 8%. That adds a lot of cost. So if Honda's not careful, if people are really becoming price sensitive in an economy where you need to watch your pennies, people will move to other brands. My philosophy on this is people my age and older, so I'm Gen X. So Gen X and baby boomers, if they're at a certain stage in life and can afford it, they don't care. They're just going to go and buy a Honda, because our generation, my generation and older, we grew up with Honda being Honda, and it was worth more because it was a Honda. The generations below, so we're Gen X, then you get the millennials and the Gen Z, they're called. I don't think they have the affinity for the brand the same way that people my age do. They're maybe getting married, having their first kid, buying a house in the suburbs, and they look at vehicles as a grudge purchase. They are not really into cars in a mass way, the same as my generation was. So they start shopping and they look around and they realize that the Hondas are just way more expensive. I don't think that's going to do great things for the Honda brand. I just don't. Okay, let's go down to the bottom here. I think we have a super chat. I always like a super chat. Old Dog 316. Hey Zach, I know I'm beating a dead horse, but I'm between a Caddy CT5V and a G70 3.3 now. Alfa Romeo Giulia TI is on my radar. Thoughts? Well, you have picked some excellent choices here. Okay, so I just want to be clear. After we talked about the CT5V last week, so there's the CT5V, the Blackwing. That's not what I'm talking about. Not the monster V8 supercharged and all that. That's not the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about the CT5V. Used to be called the V. I think they call it V something. Anyway, it was with the twin turbo V6. That's the one I'm talking about. And then you're looking at the G70 3.3 turbo. That's a nice car, competent. The Giulia is a wonderful machine. It really is a fantastic car. I see them when I drive around or walk the dog, and I think to myself, this is the honest truth. If I was in the market for a compact sedan and I just wanted to have something different and fun, I would lease a Giulia. Lease is the key word. Now, Alfa Romeo's reliability is down near the bottom of the latest quality scores, but whenever we put an Alfa Romeo video out, we get an avalanche of comments from people who own the cars and say they're wonderful and they've had very few problems with them. A friend of mine who lives in Ontario, he is the editor of a magazine, and he had a Stelvio Quattrofoglio. Yeah, that's right. What's the hell is it called again? Yeah. He had one for a few years, and he put lots of miles on it, and he had little trouble with it. So back to my thoughts. The Giulia also gets the Brembo brakes, which is nice. The four-cylinder engine is one of the most powerful in the class. So you've got more power than most other competitors when you look at 2-liter turbocharged engines. But then you slide in the 6-cylinder turbo of the Cadillac. If it was between the three, I would still go with the Cadillac. That's a special car, as I said last week. Twin turbo V6, 10-speed automatic transmission, a rear bias all-wheel drive system, an electronic limited slip rear differential, magnetic ride control, and Brembo brakes. Well, hello, that's what I'd take. Here's Jean again. On a waiting list for the Corolla all-wheel drive hybrid. Now thinking about new Prius all-wheel drive hybrid. Best savvy choice. Prices will get it in 2030. I don't think you're going to have to wait that long, but maybe a while. Yeah, this is a very good question. So the Corolla all-wheel drive hybrid and the Prius all-wheel drive hybrid will be essentially the same thing, right? So they don't reinvent a hybrid system and an all-wheel drive system from one car to the next. So they're the same. They have a small electric motor at the back. They used to call it all-wheel drive, electronic all-wheel drive. But that's the same thing if you get a Highlander hybrid all-wheel drive. It too just has an electric motor at the back of the vehicle. So these are some good choices. I would say the Corolla is going to be your traditional looking sedan, and this Prius is a little bit more futuristic, probably more fuel efficient because of the shape of the car. Those are two excellent choices. I say yes to both. Another super chat. Thank you very much. Which one would you pick between the CR-V, RAV4, CX550, or the Tiguan? Tucson and Sportage have crazy markup, and availability is bad in Alberta. Well, back to our chat just a moment ago, we were talking about the CR-V. It's overpriced in comparison to the others. The RAV4 is the safest choice of the bunch because it's a Toyota, known reliability, resale value, very dependable, all those sorts of things. The Tiguan is turbocharged, delivers good power, has a conventional automatic. There's no CVT. It's an 8-speed. And they priced some of their trims really quite aggressively, and you get a lot of content in them. It's one of the bigger ones as well. So the Tiguan is one of those that a lot of people don't think about. The new Tiguan, they did a great job with calibrating the engine and the transmission to make it smoother and more comfortable. Then you throw in the CX-5. It's kind of on the small side in comparison to the ones you have on this list. The CX-50 is just a little bit bigger and more of a kind of a station wagon look, which speaks to me. If it was between the CX-50 and the CX-5, personally, I would take the CX-50. I just like the look of it more. But of the bunch, if I had to say, like, this is really, I don't know your situation and what you're using it for. If it's just taking kids and commuting, the RAV4 is the safe choice. The CRV is too expensive. Tiguan is a little bit more fun than the bunch because it's got that turbocharged engine, and the CX-50 of the two Mazdas would be the one that I would pick. So I say get out there and try them all out and see which one you like. Here's another super chat from my Spankster. Okay. Hey, Zach, was going to get the Kia Sportage Hybrid, but it's a 6 to 12 month wait and are marked up 30% of MSRP in Alberta. Was very disappointing. Well, we were with Kia in California 2 weeks ago driving the new Niro. Hopefully you guys watched the video. The Niro hybrid, the plug-in hybrid, and the full electric. And we brought this up with the head of marketing. And he said, this is really frustrating because it's the manufacturer's suggested retail price. MSRP is manufacturer's suggested retail price. And then I was at another dealership recently talking with somebody from a different brand, not Kia, and I asked about this. I said, how are dealerships getting around this markup thing? He said, just so long, this is the legal definition for the regulatory body that governs dealers, just so long as they don't advertise the MSRP, then they're still in compliance. So if you start looking at ads online, if there's a newspaper ad or a billboard or anything, and you see an ad for a vehicle, it's dealer price, not MSRP. And that way they stay within the bounds of the regulatory body. I still think it's kind of folly for people to be charging that much. I don't think it does anything for your brand in the eyes of the public. Like, for example, you're saying that you're disappointed that they're trying to charge 30% over dealer ask or dealer markup, 30%. Struggling here, 30% over MSRP. So, what taste does that put in your mouth about that dealership and the brand? It's not good, right? So when things normalize again, and they will eventually, maybe not right away, but we will get back to more normal times. I think a lot of those dealers that tried to pull this kind of stuff, they're maybe not going to have the same kind of warm feeling in the community. So I don't know what you do about it other than drive the car you've got and wait for things to normalize a bit. Another super chat. We're knocking them out of the park today. What's the purpose of Acura? They're all mediocre in comparison to competitors and don't have the performance to back it up. MDX is the best they have. I was just thinking as I was reading this, well, I kind of disagree with that because the MDX is a wonderful product. In fact, it's one of my favorite three-row SUVs. And then you get the Type S MDX. Now that is a special vehicle. 350 horsepower, turbocharged, 3-liter, 6-cylinder, great handling all-wheel drive system, stiffer suspension, bigger wheels. That is expensive, but in comparison to, say, an Audi Q7, it's actually not that bad a deal. But I kind of see your point. Listen, there's a place for brand engineering, which is taking one vehicle, modifying it, and then reselling it under a different brand. And that's what they do with Honda and Acura. That's what they do a lot of times with Lexus and Toyota. But you know what? People like having a badge that represents who they are. They're willing to spend more to get more features, and you get a longer warranty. And often with these things, you get a better dealer experience. The dealers often at the higher end dealers treat you, hopefully, a little bit nicer. That's one thing. But I agree with you. Some of their latest efforts have been okay, haven't been fantastic. There's some holes in Acura's lineup. For example, so they have RDX, which is based on the CRV sort of platform. They don't have anything smaller than that. Like, hopefully they're going to come out with something based on the HRV with the turbo engine. That would be a good Acura to have, and I think would sell quite well. All right, 356 people on board right now. We have 87 thumbs up. If you could smash the thumbs up, that would be great. All right, back up we go before we get some more Um, Super chats. Super chats are good though. I like them. Help support the channel. Here's Steve saying hi. Hi back. And then we have John James here. Hey, Zach. Notice you always reference the US EPA for efficiency figures. Efficiency figures. Does Canada have anything similar to their vehicles, or do they just rely solely on US EPA numbers? So the Canadian and US car regulations and these sorts of things are homogenized across the border. So safety regulations are the same for the most part on both sides of the border. We did have some discrepancies for things like Canada had daytime running lights years before the United States. That third tail light at the top of the rear window, that came in Canada first. So these things really have been sort of homogenized across the border. It's the same with fuel economy numbers. So I believe that Transport Canada does do, or Natural Resources Canada does do some of their own testing, but they really are relying on the EPA numbers. And it's just basically a way to save costs. I'm sure the Canadian government pays the EPA for some of that information, but it's just a way to share costs, because the cars, for the most part, even though we talk about different trims north and south of the border, the actual engineered car, the engine, the transmissions, and all that on either side of the border are the same. The safety features are pretty much the same. It only comes down to packaging, what features are in the cars, so there's no need to do it twice. That's really the reason. All right, I think we have another super chat here. A $28 super chat. Wow, that's very generous. Hey, Zach, does the Lincoln Corsair and Ford Escape use the same EcoBoost engine and transmission? I'm trying to figure out why Consumer Reports give the Ford Escape a poor reliability rating, whereas the Corsair has an above average rating. I would have to dig into that off the top of my head. Okay, this is the same platform, right? I think it is the same driveline. The Corsair has the all-wheel drive, and the Escape does not. And that's maybe, wait a second, are you talking about, let me just double check that. I mean, I don't want to make a mistake here. Okay, I'm confusing things. I'm thinking of the hybrids. Does the Lincoln Corsair and the Ford Escape use the same EcoBoost engine and transmission? No, I was thinking hybrids. No, the Lincoln Corsair has the 2.3 liter and the Ford Escape has the 2 liter. I would still think that the Escape is a wonderful, powerful engine with 250 horsepower, but the Lincoln does have a slightly more powerful engine. I'm trying to figure out why Consumer Reports gives the Escape poor reliability rating, whereas the Corsair has an above average rating. I would suspect it probably only comes back to the quality reports they're getting from owners. So there's way less Lincolns sold than Fords. So the chance of things going wrong with a Ford are much higher because they sell more of them. So the people that subscribe to Consumer Reports, they fill out their surveys and send it back, or they do it online. So the people that have bought the vehicles and are part of Consumer Reports probably have less problems, and then the Ford, there's more of them out there, it shows up more. That's the only reason I could see. To your point, it's the same platform, slightly different engine configuration, and I like both of them. I'm a big fan of the Ford Escape. I'm a bigger fan of the Ford Escape than Andrea. I think it's actually a great handling vehicle. This latest Ford Escape, they did a really good job on it. The reliability in some years hasn't been as good as others, but from what we've seen in the last year, the Ford Escape has moved up. Now that's outside of Consumer Reports. That's coming from J.D. Power, but the numbers are improving. My Spankster again. Great explanation, Zach. After your review on the 2023 Nissan Rogue Platinum, we ended up ordering it and are very happy. Was no markup either. Hey, good for you. The Rogue is an interesting product because it's first of all, when you get in and out of it, because I'm the one who shoots what we call shooting the car out. I shoot the outside, the inside, the trunk, the engine, all that kind of stuff. So I'm in and out of the car. And when you're in and out of the Rogue and looking at it, it's very well designed. It gets very logical. They did a very good job with all of the ergonomics, the dash, the back seat, the cargo area, all of that. And then last year, or this year I should say, they put in the new turbo 3-cylinder. So it's a turbocharged 3-cylinder, 1.5 liter. And not only that, it's a variable compression engine. That's like crazy technology. With that engine, it is much better in terms of driving dynamics than the old 2.5 liter naturally or normally aspirated engine. So it's quite impressive what it's able to do. It actually sounds better than the old gas engine. It performs better. It has way better acceleration. The only question mark is, this is new technology. How's it going to hold up in the long run? But I'm glad you like your car because when we drove it, we were very impressed with that. More super chats. This is Simon Larocque. Hope I said it right. Thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate that. Here's James. EPA and lights. Why not auto tail lights? I see it so often. So we were talking about the homogeneous rules and regulations around cars on either side of the border. So James is pointing out the fact that when you would turn the car on, the daytime running lights would come on in the front, but the tail lights would not automatically come on. The worst offender I see for this are Toyotas driving around. You come up behind them and all the lights are out on the back. Then you pass them and you see that the daytime running lights are on. So the new regulation, and this is the same on both sides of the border, this has now happened. So what you're seeing are the older models, is when you start the car, the daytime running lights come on and the tail lights come on. That really makes a big difference, especially at night. Because the person in the car, they see the dashboard light up. They see some kind of light in front from the daytime running lights, but their lights in the back are out. My friend Jim Kenzie, if you were here in Canada, you know Jim from Motoring TV in Kenzie's Corner. He said, I don't even understand why cars have a light switch. And it absolutely makes sense. Why do we have a light switch? You turn the car on, the lights come on. You turn the car off, the lights go off. That's the way it is with German cars. So this is really mostly Japanese cars we see this with, where the lights don't come on in the back. It has passed. It is happening. So that's good. Here's Simon again. Hey, Zach, between the GV70 2.5 Advanced, that's the one I like, the Q5 Technic, Corsair Reserve, which is the best overall for reliability, comfort, quiet, and value? They all have high and low points. The GV70 2.5 is the right GV70 to get, in my opinion. And then you go into the other ones. The Q5 is just a good all-rounder. It does everything well. It doesn't excel in any one area, but it is really just a good all-rounder. The Corsair is a surprise. Every time I drive one, I'm impressed. As I mentioned a moment ago, I'm a big fan of the Ford Escape. The Corsair builds on that. In my experience, though, the Corsair doesn't get very good fuel economy with that larger engine. And which is the best overall for reliability, comfort, quiet, and value? I would say probably the Corsair is going to be the quietest, but overall, probably the GV70 2.5 is probably the best overall vehicle. It's the most modern of the bunch. It actually has a great engine that delivers. It's quite roomy. It's good looking. It handles well. They did a very good job with that. Each one of these, I would say, the only thing is that the Q5 is now getting to the end of the line. It's basically going to be updated soon. The Corsair has just received a mild facelift. So if you're looking at a Corsair, make sure you look at the 2023. I don't even think it's been announced for dealerships yet. They changed the headlamps, the front grille. They changed the rear lamps, and they also changed the screen to a bigger screen. The same thing with the Ford Escape. So it got a mild facelift, makes it look a little bit different. So if you're doing any more research on that, have a look at the 2023 Corsair. Here's Jean again. Me again, it seems like the 2023 Prius will be a lot more powerful than the 2023 Corolla all-wheel drive hybrid. Will the pricing reflect those differences? I don't know. We'll have to wait a few more weeks until we get the pricing on the Prius. But you're right. The current Corolla is, with available hybrid system, is not in the same league as what this new Prius will be. They have announced that the Corolla is going to be updated with the all-wheel drive system. I'm trying to remember now what the power was. If they announced, did they announce the power? I'm trying to do this because this was going back to June. What the Corolla all-wheel drive hybrid, did they announce the power on that? I'm guessing it's going to be the same as the Prius. I could be wrong. So let me look into that, and we'll find out, especially when we go to the launch of the all-new Prius. Okay. All right. Thank you for all the super chats. You guys have been very generous, but they are easier for me to see, that's for sure. Okay. Here's GA. What are your thoughts on the Infiniti brand? Do you think they'll survive, as they left many other countries and no new product releases in the next 2 years as per their press releases? Yeah, I don't know what the plans are. I mean, they just brought out their biggest seller, which is the QX60, and they did a good job with it based on the Pathfinder. Pathfinder, they improved the Pathfinder, then they turned it into Infiniti, and they did a good job. I really enjoyed our time driving that product. That's their best seller. They really need to update the QX50. I'm not totally sold on having the variable compression 2-liter turbo engine and a CVT. That's where it all falls down. If they could put the same 9-speed automatic transmission in the QX50 and the QX55, now that would make everything much better. And they also need to update the infotainment screen. I would suspect that will be coming, but you know what? You might know something I don't. I just can't see them bringing out a new QX60 and then saying, that's it, we're done. I just don't see that. One more question. Is there an e-tron equivalent Tiguan in the works? There is basically an e-tron equivalent to the Tiguan available now. It's funny that the Audi shows up behind me. It's the Q4. So the ID4 is the Volkswagen electric SUV, right? Which is roughly the same size, maybe a little bit bigger than the Tiguan. The Audi version of that is the Q4. So it is already available. It's not, these gasoline nameplates might stay on as electrified vehicles. Volkswagen's future is electric. So even though there is a Tiguan now, will the Tiguan eventually become electric, or will the name just retire? So the closest thing you have to a Tiguan that's electric is the Q4. Here's Phil, great content. The 2023 Nissan Qashqai is discontinued. That's the Nissan Rogue Sport in the US, but continues in Canada. The new Canadian 2023 model, the next gen, as in the rest of the world. I don't know. I have to find out from Nissan. As far as we know, it stays on in Canada. Whether we're getting the updated model they have in Europe, I'm not sure. Initially, one of the problems is the Kicks has sold incredibly well, and then the Rogue is their best seller, and the Qashqai is almost as big as the Rogue, and that's why they called it the Rogue Sport in the United States. So it never really caught on. Qashqai, I think, did better here in Canada, but I think the Kicks really does well. I don't know the answer to your question, but it's a good one if they're bringing the updated European version here to North America. Here's Dave. Thanks for hosting. Nice to see you back. Nice to be back. Here is somebody saying, can't wait for the Outlander PHEV review. So we get to drive it this week. We've already shot a video of the outside and the inside. That came out in the summer. But now we get a chance to drive it and give our driving impressions. So we are going to the event on Tuesday here in Vancouver. The embargo is next Monday, so our video will drop then. I like the new CRV, but won't support Honda's price hike. Lots of other good options. Yeah, the CRV drives really well. They did a very good job with the road noise, compliance over bumps. The CVT is quite good in the city. The engine is okay, but they didn't move things forward in terms of the in-dash technology, like the radios are small. No panoramic sunroof, where they had it in Canada several years ago. Some other features are missing, and then they charge a lot for it. Here's Josh in Montreal. Hey, Zach. As we are almost at mandatory wintertime here in Quebec, can you please let me and the gang know what's the advantages of switching to a smaller tire when choosing winter versus summer tires? Okay, so Josh is in Montreal in the middle of November until the middle of, is it March or April? Might be April. You have to run on winter tires in the province of Quebec. It makes so much sense in a northern climate to have a mandated winter tire program, avoid so many accidents. And I think it should be mandatory in most of the country, except maybe here in Vancouver. Even in Vancouver, you have to drive on winter tires outside of the city into the mountains if you're going to Whistler, for example. So when you have, okay, let me just try and explain this. A wheel and tire size is the same circumference on the outside. So if you have like an 18-inch wheel, the outside circumference of the tire is the same as if you had a 20-inch wheel. Well, how do they do that? So the side of the tire is narrower, right? And then often the tire is wider. So when you go from, say, a 20-inch wheel to an 18-inch wheel in the winter, what you're doing is you're making the footprint of the tire actually smaller, narrower, not the height of the sidewall, the width of the tread. That's measured in millimeters. So you'll have a tire that's 225 millimeters, and maybe your summer tire was 245 or 265 millimeters. That's the tread as looking at it from the top. So a narrower tire has less surface area to spread out in the snow. So when you have less surface area, you're actually biting into the snow, hopefully through the snow and down to the pavement below. So a wider tire spreads the load and the weight of the car over a wider area. Therefore, the tire doesn't dig into the snow as well. That's why you have snowshoes. Snowshoes are big, wide, things that you put on your feet like this. If you don't wear a snowshoe, your foot just goes right into the snowbank. You wear a snowshoe, it spreads the load out over the area. That's why snowshoes are big and fat. So that's exactly what you want with a winter tire. You want a narrower tire to dig into the snow and cut through the snow and hopefully get down to the pavement. If you ever watch the WRC races in places like Finland and Scandinavia, when they're driving in the winter, the tires are really narrow, like they look like fat bicycle tires, and then they have spikes on them as well, or they're spiked, I guess you would call them, and they're really quite narrow, and that's to dig into the snow. So that's why you want that. All right, I think we got some more super chats. Here's Old Dog 316 again. Hey, Zach, still confused. What's the difference between hybrid and PHEV? That's a good question. And, it's interesting because a lot of people think they know and maybe they don't. So a hybrid doesn't need to be plugged in, okay? It's got a gasoline engine and it's got a very small battery. In the case of the current Prius, for example, it's a very small 1.6 kilowatt battery. So how do you get electricity into the battery if there's no plug? Well, every time you accelerate in a car, you need to decelerate, right? You come to a stop sign, you go down a hill. The electric motors in the front then turn into generators. And every time you're reducing your speed or putting on the brakes, that's generating electricity and putting it into the battery. So the battery in the computer always keeps a certain amount of charge in the battery. So then when you go to accelerate again, those electric motors reverse and go from being generators to producing power. So they take the energy out of the battery. So there's this constant dance of charging the batteries when you're braking and depleting the batteries, not entirely, when you're accelerating. And that's the beauty of a hybrid system. It just adds enough electrification to reduce your overall fuel consumption down, in some cases, to very low numbers. So that's a hybrid, no plug. Okay? Then a plug-in hybrid takes that same system and then makes the battery bigger. For example, you would go from a 1.6 kilowatt hour battery to probably anywhere from 11 to even 20 kilowatt hour battery. So a much, much bigger battery. So in that case, the electrification that's built into the car is used more. So you can drive for 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 kilometers, 30, 40, 50 miles, just using the battery. But then when the battery depletes to no longer being able to propel the car just with electricity, what happens then? It reverts back to that initial battery hybrid system that I mentioned a moment ago. The smaller, it always keeps a certain amount in the battery, so then it becomes a hybrid again. The gas and the electric motor are always working together. So the plug-in element just allows you to drive for that period of time, anywhere from 30 to 80 kilometers, 20 to 50 miles, just using electricity. And then when there's not enough energy, it goes back to just being a hybrid. But you got to plug it in. You need to be able to charge that battery with electricity from an outlet. That's the difference. A plug-in hybrid is a fancier version of a regular hybrid. Hopefully I explained that. Another super chat. Look at us go tonight. Hey, Zach, my senior dad is looking at buying a Ford Transit Connect passenger van. Could you provide some insight on this vehicle? It seems to be a vehicle that is rarely mentioned in the Ford lineup. So the Transit Connect is one of the best-selling vehicles in the world. Most of them are delivery vehicles or used by tradespeople, plumbers, electricians, those sorts of people, delivery vans. And they have no windows, right? That's just a small utility van that's used for deliveries or for people in the trades. They do offer a windowed version with seats, okay? So it offers easy access because you've got the big sliding doors that you get in the Transit Connect. And it's built on a car platform. So a lot of people think the Transit Connect is like this big body-on-frame. No, it's really a car-based style vehicle. It has nice handling, comfortable, especially for the front seat passengers. The front dash is more what would have been sold in like a Ford Focus for many years. And then you have more headroom because it's used to be a delivery van, right? Much more headroom and more space. So that's an advantage of the passenger version of the Transit. The downside is it was originally designed as a work vehicle. So when you get in on the inside, especially for the rear passengers, it's not as fancy and nice as you would get like in a regular minivan, but it offers something that's quite different. So it's one of those vehicles that people aren't thinking about. And if you need to move people around and you want to do it, it might be a more advantageous way to go than driving minivans. Here's the thing. Minivan prices have shot up. Minivans used to be cheap as chips. You could get a Grand Caravan for under $20,000. Those days are gone. They're now like 40 grand and over. They're really expensive. So I haven't looked at what a Ford Transit Connect costs these days. It might be cheaper. Here's Jeff Fraser. Good evening, Zach. To the guy asking about the Ford Escape and the Corsair. NHTSA listed the Bronco Sport and the Ford Escape engine fires and failing transmission. Ford has the highest recall of all brands, 20%. That's not quite true. The most recalls goes to Tesla. But that's because they also include the over-the-air updates. But yes, there you go. That's some valuable information from Jeff. Thank you for that. And we can all thank you, Jeff, because he spent 20 bucks to get that information out. So good for you. Thanks for doing that. That's some good information. But that is, as we mentioned earlier, that's a different engine in the Corsair. It's the 2.3 liter versus the 2 liter. And I would suspect that the Ford Escape engines and the Bronco Sport are the 1.5 three-cylinder turbo engine, not the 2 liter EcoBoost engine. I don't know, I don't have the data in front of me, but I would almost bet that it's the 3-cylinder turbo that's probably having the issues. Okay, up we go again. Let's see if we can find where we were. I remember we had at the top here, we had Josh from Montreal. So I'll see if I can find his post. There he is. Okay, here's Stephen Wong now. Are you going to do a video on the most reliable car brands of 2022 from Consumer Reports? No, I don't think so. I'm not a huge fan of Consumer Reports. I think it's valuable information for a lot of people to get some kind of feedback on quality from Consumer Reports. I'm just not a fan of their methodology. They have people who own the cars report back to them the problems they're having with their cars. The issue I have with that is people who subscribe to Consumer Reports, not all of them, people jump down my throat when I said this before, it's a generalization, are older, male, mostly white, and they don't represent a broad spectrum of society. Now, when you look at, so you have Consumer Reports and J.D. Power. J.D. Power does anonymous surveys of the cars from hundreds of thousands of people who own them across the country. They don't know who they are. They don't know their age. They don't know their gender. They don't know their ethnic makeup. So Consumer Reports is, have you ever heard of the term confirmation bias? There are some people that buy vehicles and they want them to be reliable because they've invested in them. And you get a little bit of that in the Consumer Reports reporting. Then Consumer Reports takes that information and then they skew it with their own experts and they give their thumbs up or thumbs down based on their opinion of the vehicle. I don't want opinions when it comes to quality. I want the hard numbers, and that's where J.D. Power does a better job, in my opinion. Have you got any intel regarding the CX-90? Thanks. All I know is it was supposed to, when we drove the CX-50 earlier in the year, they said it was going to be this fall. That's what we heard. They now say it's going to be the new year. So there you go. Here's Harpreet. Hey, Jack. Good job on the video yesterday. My dad loved it. Harpreet's dad bought last year's Palisade. So they have the Palisade. That video went out yesterday. Marky Mark, what was the fuel bill to refuel the Armada last week? $100 or less. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. So when we got the Armada, when we had it, it was the highest cost for fuel. So that video was actually sitting on the shelf for quite a while. We shot it kind of at the end of the summer. So the fuel was at the very highest number we'd ever had here in Vancouver. So I was pretty sparingly, I used it sparingly. Picked the car up. We did all of our driving shots, which is driving next to it, having it drive by the camera, and then, getting in and out and taking all the video of it. But anything more than that, we didn't drive it that much because it was just, I can't remember what it was, but it was under $100 because we didn't actually go that far in it intentionally. What's your impression of the Kia Rio 2023? Has there been a change? I don't know. I'm a big fan of the Rio, and it's one of the very few subcompact cars still available. So, yeah, I don't know if there's been any changes. X1 2023 review coming. Waiting for that. We're waiting for it to arrive. We heard it was going to be December. Well, we're days away from December. It's funny you mentioned that. I've been meaning to email the PR rep and say, where's the car? But I've been told it's on the way. Hey, Zach, Civic Hybrid is getting better reviews in Europe. Might be a battle with the new Prius. Yeah. Can't wait to drive that. That's coming too. We have to wait until it's been announced. They've said it's coming, but they haven't announced when it's coming. If you had 50,000 Canadian to spend with a 5-seat SUV, what would you buy? The best value in the car space is the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid, period. There's no better vehicle on the road for the price than the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid. Great fuel economy, great resale value, great reliability, all of those things, and you can get it well under 50,000, even taxes included. So that would be my number one pick. The problem is you can't get one because there's a huge waiting list for them. There's also another little asterisk next to it, and that is look up what's called Cablegate. There have been problems in the province of Quebec of the orange cables, the high intensity cables that go from the battery pack to the hybrid system have had corrosion issues. It's been reported in Quebec, apparently some northern states as well. From what we're hearing is Toyota is standing behind any of the vehicles that have failed. So we're starting to get that information trickling in. But if it was me, it would be Toyota RAV4 Hybrid for a 5-seat SUV. Just nothing can touch it. The other one that you want to look at is maybe the Kia Sportage or Sportage hybrid as well. Is a very, very good value in there as well. All right, where are we here? Do you think predicted reliability will reset with EVs for electric vehicles? Land Rover could be as reliable as, say, Toyota. The interesting thing is, the studies that I have seen coming out about quality is EVs are the least reliable. They have the most issues and returns back to the dealer. I'm guessing a lot of that is coming into software. There's a lot of software, obviously, to manage the electrical systems in the car. And the other problem I have with EVs is a lot of these brands put a lot of gimmicks and things like, door handles that fully retract and big screens and all of that kind of stuff. I'm guessing it's probably a lot to do with that. Initially with Tesla, it was the drive motors were failing. That seems to have rectified. With Tesla, it's body issues, paint, body panels, leaking sunroof, stuff like that. Of the studies that I've seen in North America and in Europe, the most reliable vehicles are not gas, they're not electric, they're hybrids. Hybrid vehicles have the highest quality scores, and we're getting that from Europe and here from North America. Next are conventional gasoline models, and then EVs. As I mentioned, I think part of the problem is a lot of these car companies are throwing a lot of their latest technology at the EVs, in my opinion, unnecessarily. I don't need door handles that automatically retract. Just give me a regular door handle. Stuff like that can go wrong. But that will improve. The car companies will get better at these things. But right now, if you want the most reliable vehicle, it would be hybrids. Then, of the top 10 vehicles that were listed in this recent study, I'm trying to remember where I saw it. I read it, I'm pretty sure I read it on Automotive News. Of the top 10 vehicles that were the most reliable, most of them were Toyota and Korean cars. And there was one other vehicle, I'm trying to remember what it was, that was on the list. But of the top 10, one was not Korean or Japanese, and most of them were Toyota. I really don't understand Toyota's Crown lineup. The Crown lineup is a luxury Toyota, but isn't that what Lexus is? I think you're starting to see with Toyota this sort of halfway measure, right? So look at the Venza, for example. The Venza, in comparison to the RAV4, based on the same platform, same drivetrain, but a very different execution of what a compact SUV is. A little bit more elegant, a little bit more upscale, and then you go into the Lexus NX and the Lexus RX. There is a bit of room in there between your mainline Toyotas, before you jump into a Lexus. It also affords Toyota the ability to maybe move the price of Lexus products up. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But yeah, I think you're seeing it, for example, with Mazda south of the border. They have their mainline cars, and then they have like their signature versions that are near premium cars. Now, they don't have a luxury division above that, where Toyota obviously has Lexus. But it seems like they're doing this layered cake, right? Mainline Toyota, slightly higher version of Toyota, and then you get into Lexus. You know what? It gives people options, and you're getting near premium, but you're not paying as much. I think that's what they're trying to do. Hey, Zach, I'm looking at the Corolla Cross Hybrid, but when I drove the Venza with the same powertrain, it was noisy. Do you think the Corolla Cross smaller size will make the engine more peppy? It's not going to be the same powertrain as the Venza. I think it's going to be the 2-liter and not the 2.5 liter. Every Toyota hybrid version is quieter than the gas model. So it's not available yet for us to drive. It's not being released. The price hasn't been announced. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. All right, everybody, we are all done. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any super chats because you guys have been so generous tonight. I appreciate that. But thanks to everybody that came on board. 426 people on board. 213 thumbs up. Once again, this week on Tuesday, we're doing our top 5 compact SUVs. But these are gas only. The one we did a few weeks ago included hybrids and plug-ins, and that, excuse me, that really skewed who was going to be in the list and not. We had a lot of people say, "Hey, I don't want a hybrid, don't want a plug-in. Can you just do the gas models?" Well, we listened and we're doing it. And then on Wednesday, it's the top 5 subcompact SUVs. These are vehicles like the HR-V, the Corolla Cross, the CX-30, and that sort of thing. So we're going to give you our list of 5 to number 1 and some honorable mentions. So that's coming out on Wednesday. And this week, we will be filming the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. The Ride and Drive event is here locally in Vancouver. The embargo on that lifts next Monday. So that's all still to come. Excuse me, this week and next week. And I need a drink of water, obviously. So thanks to everybody that tuned in. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I have barbecue duty ahead of me tonight. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great night.